Margaret Smith, another show that goes back in history. So those are among the problems. And I've got 10 more, but I'm already running late. Now, that is one form of Christian Zionism, a theology in service of empire that's extensive. But I've come to believe, and I grew up in this, I lecture on this, I've written about it, but the second form that Mark has been talking about is probably the more dangerous. More dangerous to our denominations, more dangerous to our body politic, more dangerous to the peace process, although both are problematic. When I went to seminary, years ago, I went to Princeton and studied Paul Van Buren's theology. I studied post-Holocaust theology. And I'm glad I did, rightly so. But I slipped into another form of Christian Zionism in doing so, because I didn't know the other side of the story. And I slipped into another form of exceptionalism for Christians and for Jews that is extremely problematic and dangerous. I'm not going to go into this because Mark talked about it so well. Read the book again, Fatal Grace. And I learned quickly, as soon as I discovered the Palestine question, that that theology is used as a silencer on justice. When I was doing my doctorate, I took a course, Mark will get a kick out of this, I will mention this to you, and there were two professors, one of whom was Father John Polakowski. I wrote a paper on international law as it's applicable to the Palestine question. Did a lot of research, and I thought it was pretty good. Polakowski gave me a C-. And a lot of reading about you're missing the point on Israel. You're isolating Israel in your critique. You're being unfair to the Jewish people. All of that. The other professor gave me an A+, kind of good stuff. But that's not the point. That kind of pushback and silencing effect. And I was too new at this to really deal with it. You feel a bit of guilt when you're accused of being anti-Semitic. But this silencing effect of both the Christian and the Jewish establishment is deep in our denominations, in our churches, and we really need to be actively pursuing alternatives. And I can come in a moment to say, the Kairos document is the antidote. It's the alternative, and there's much more. Fatal Grace is another alternative. To begin to help us think critically and give us sound theology to move beyond this exceptionalism, the guilt over the Holocaust, and the pressure that we'll be under. Where am I? Let me talk a little bit about the Presbyterian Church. I happen to be Presbyterian, and I got a couple of good examples how this is working. I remember in 2004, I went to the General Assembly. I was the advocate on two resolutions on condemning the wall and challenging Christian Zionism. Those passed well. I was thankful and pleased, got a lot of help on the floor. Toward the end of the session in the committee, a pastor from Florida who had just come back from Israel-Palestine stood up and he put forth an overture from Florida calling for divestment. I thought, geez, why didn't I do that? We thought about it, but we were just too timid. But Glenn Dixon from Gainesville, Florida, trip with, I think, CPT, saw it all, and said, after talking to the Palestinians, said, divestment is now the road we must be on. That got finessed a little bit in committee, and it turned into phase-selective divestment, which was probably the only way it could have passed on the floor of the General Assembly. But the Presbyterian Church went on record, and it really sent, I think, a positive signal to advocates of this issue and to Friends of the Middle East. It didn't take long before Alan Dershowitz, remember O.J.'s lawyer? Remember the article? Editorial in the LA Times? The anti-Semitic Presbyterian Church threatens the security of Israel. And it went on from there. So this was the kind of pushback, and our staff at General Assembly, many were exhausted from GA and they were on vacation when this hit. So we didn't have anybody in the PR office to deal with it. In Chicago, we came out very strongly in support of this. Debates, we were in churches, our Middle East task force every week was speaking in support of phase-selective divestment. And we were nailed. I personally am proud to say that I was lined up with Naim Atik and Mitri Radnev as being a vile anti-Semite in support of the Adversus Judaeus theology. But you know, that was a 40-page paper that was sent to all the clergy and universities all around the Chicago area and the Midwest. We have had to deal with it. That's the kind of pressure. Now, after 2004, there were significant financial cuts in our denomination. I think you all know that. We began to talk about the creation of a Israel-Palestine mission organization. It would be totally independent in the General Assembly, but be in touch with them to support justice. So within these staff cutbacks, it really began in 2006. A group formed, and then it really kicked into high gear in 2008. How many have seen Steadfast Hope, that publication? That came out of our little organization. That little organization now has grown to about 100 people. 2 retired development people came on board. They are raising $50,000 a year from our 100 people to support that movement. And at this year's General Assembly, people came on their own dime, over 35, to work with people like Jeff Halper, Mitri Radnev. Mark was there, and helped preserve the report that came out. And despite the onslaught, the Christian Century article was one that Mark referred to. Did you know there's also an article in Newsweek trashing that report? The Christian Century, which has now caved into the pressure, won't even publish a review of Mark's book at this point. And before, they were very open. The article that was published by Amy Jo Levine and the other person at Vanderbilt was distributed to all the delegates at General Assembly to defeat that proposal. And thank God we were able to preserve it with minor changes. But it was the hard work of that mission network, our advocates, and the committee. So I think every denomination should look at this as a possible model. I know the Lutherans and United Methodists and the Episcopal Church is looking at this model. Go do it better. We're struggling.